after a buyer submits their TRR to the seller, can they come back and now elect to terminate the contract based on the results of the inspections? Well, let's talk about it in this video because I got a question earlier about this, and the scenario goes like this. Your buyer completes their inspections and there are some repairs that they would like to have made. So you prepare that treatments, repairs, and replacements form and we submit it to the seller. But then the buyer has a little bit of a change of heart and they want to come back and say, you know what, I'd really prefer to just go ahead and terminate this contract based on the inspection results. Can they do that? So the buyers finished their inspections and now they are at a crossroads and it's decision time. So let's remember how this works. Once the buyer's done with their inspections, they've got one of two choices. Either they're going to terminate the contract because they're unhappy with the results of the inspections. And that we can see right here under paragraph 7C2A. A lot of different subparagraphs here in the inspection provisions, which makes it a little bit more complicated. But remember, once we've completed our inspections, our first option is if, in the sole opinion of the buyer, the results of the inspections are unsatisfactory, then the buyer may cancel the contract by giving notice to the seller. So that's their first option, is they can say, look, I don't like the results of the inspections. There's too much going wrong here. And it could really be anything pretty small for that matter, but it has to be something that, in the opinion of the buyer, they're unhappy with the results of the inspections. And a little aside here, remember that is the results of the inspections, not for some other unrelated reason like, oh, I don't like the terms of the financing anymore, or it's going to be too expensive, or I found a different house that I would prefer. That's not a basis to terminate under the inspection provisions. It's got to be related to the inspections. But they finish their inspections and they decide, yes, I'm going to terminate. Great. All we got to do is give notice to the seller within our required time period, and they're good to go. They're out of the contract and they get their earnest money back. But what happens so frequently instead is that the buyer decides they want to negotiate some repairs, right? So we have to pick one or the other. The buyer can't kind of flip-flop back between the two of them. And why is that? Because we've got this section here, 2A says I'm going to terminate, and then there's this big bold or B, they're going to submit a TRR. And the first sentence of this TRR provision is super important because it says after they complete their inspection, they waive buyer's right to cancel by delivering to seller the notice of treatments, repairs, and replacements on that TRR form. This is really important, right? It starts out by saying, hey, if I'm going to submit my TRR, I am waiving my right to terminate the contract. That's super important for a buyer to understand. And we got to be able to guide them through that, right? So we finish our inspections and we have to be able to come to that buyer and say, okay, look, you're at a crossroads. You've got two choices. Your first choice, if you don't like it, you want to back out, you get the choice. You can do that now. That's right here in paragraph A. But if you want to negotiate repairs and at least give it a try to negotiate, great. Then we're going to use paragraph B here. Now you're going to waive your right to terminate, but we're going to ask the seller to do these repairs, and then we'll be in this negotiation period that's way down here in paragraph I, that's by default 7 days. So how does that work, right? If the buyer submits that TRR, then again, they've waived their right to terminate. So the buyer submitted their TRR, and now we are in a back and forth negotiation period where the buyer and the seller have to agree to the repairs. And if they don't, then the contract's going to automatically terminate and the buyer's going to get their earnest money back. Now that negotiation period doesn't mean that either the buyer or the seller can say, you know what, we're done. I want to terminate the contract. Now it's possible that one of the parties kind of digs in and says, I'm done negotiating. And then if that's the case, and we get down here to paragraph I, and so we've now hit the end of day 7, and so we don't have a written agreement between the parties, then yeah, the contract's going to terminate and the buyer will get their earnest money back. That could happen. But what can't happen is the buyer come in and say, hey, I've submitted my TRR, and then the next day be like, you know what? I've had a change of heart. I actually really would rather just terminate. So instead, I'm now going to submit my notice of cancellation. That's going to be a problem for your buyer. And actually, if you did that, the buyer would I think probably be in breach of contract because they agreed that when they submit their TRR, they've actually waived their right to terminate the contract. So since they waived it, if you then come back and submit the TRR, the seller might say, well, now you're in breach of contract because you're terminating. You've now given me notice that you're terminating. And that's in breach of contract because you waived that right. If you learned a little bit of something about negotiating TRRs and the cancellation process, go ahead and hit the like button down below and hit subscribe if you haven't had a chance to do that. That lets us know that this video was helpful to you and maybe you learned a little bit of something or refreshed your memory on exactly how that inspection provision works. Navigating all the nuance and details of contracts and transactions can be very challenging, and there's a lot of questions that come up along the way. Sometimes you need a little backup and support to just get some confirmation that what you're thinking is correct, or you're not really sure which way to handle things and you want some expert advice to help you. I want to introduce you to RPro Access. This is from us at RPro Academy, and we do a lot of different things for you here with RPro Access. One of those is that we host 2 monthly live video sessions. That one is our skill builder sessions that cover important topics like going through the buyer broker agreements. We cover things like how to deal with different compensation models. In our most recent one, we just went through contingency contracts since we're starting to see those more. So we go through all the contingency documents that might apply to a contract and some of the details that have changed in recent years that you need to know about. And look, when we do those live, even if you can't make it, we record them and we post them here in our platform of RPro Access. But there's so much more that is in store there for you. We would love for you to check it out. There are things like resource templates like our 1-page and our 2-page buyer agreement. We've got a video course that walks you through how to create electronic buyer agreements to make that process simpler, and a forum where you can ask questions and get answers from us at the RPro team to help you through these difficult situations and nuanced contract details and so much more that will impact your business. If you want to join the dozens of other agents who are already RPro Access members or just learn a little bit more, head on down right over here, right there, to rproaccess.com to learn a little bit more.